So, welcome everyone. Before we start the reading and reflections, let's take a moment to ingather ourselves and also to invoke Mother's and Sri Aurobindo's presence. So, today we have to, this we had done last to last. So, last session did not happen, but before that, we had touched upon these two attitudes towards desire. So today maybe I'll just go through the reading. We'll just read what we have touched upon in the last session, and then today we can continue further and see how to conquer the desire. So conquest of desire part 2. This is what we have to start. Just a moment. So yes. So two attitudes towards desire. This we were reading last time. I'll just quickly go through so that we remember what we were going through last time. In spiritual life, there can be only two attitudes towards desire. One is that of the ascetic, which is an attitude of relentless hostility and rigid repression, and the other, the plastic and supple attitude of the lover of God in life as well as in light. The ascetic, whose single aim is to wake up from what he calls the delirium of life, strives to strangle desire by sheer will force and rigorous self-denial, and in strangling desire, strangles or sterilizes life itself. He bruises the motor springs of life and inhibits all expansive faculties, cripples all will and initiative till he finds himself sitting upon his own corpse. It is true that the Gita advises the slaying of desire, but of desire only as the immediate and overt cause of delusion and suffering, and not of the will behind it, not certainly of life itself. The ascetic's dealing with desire, and for that matter of that with his whole nature, is relentlessly repressive, drastic and destructive. If he succeeds in it, he returns when his body drops to the inane or the beyond. But if he fails, and the majority do fail, there usually results a violent upheaval in his nature, or an obscure mixture and disorder, a quasi-spiritual state of unresolved anomalies, or a steep fall from the poise and purity so laboriously attained. The Gita depreciates this strenuous, short-sighted, cavalier attitude of the ascetic and gives preference to the second attitude, which is one of equality, detachment, and a quiet, persistent rejection of desire. This attitude is of those who believe that God is not only transcendent of life, but also immanent in it, and that it is His unblemished manifestation in terrestrial life that is the object of soul's descent into birth. A calm and integral rejection of desire for the discovery of the divine will and its creative play in life constitutes the cardinal principle of the second attitude, which we shall now consider at some length. So this is what we had touched upon And now we had started reading this new paragraph where he talks in detail about the second attitude, which is embracing life rather than shunning life. And this also, I think, we had done until this first reference from the mother, where in italics there is something on desire. So I'll just go through again this much and then we will take the new reading today. Desire and the passions that arise from desire are the principal sign and not of ego. It is desire that makes you go on saying I and mine and subjects you through a persistent egoism to satisfaction and dissatisfaction, liking and disliking, hope and despair, joy and grief, to your petty loves and hatreds, to wrath, passion, to your attachment to success and things pleasant, and to the sorrow and suffering of failure and of things unpleasant. Desire brings always confusion of mind and limitation of the will, and egoistic and distorted view of things, a failure and clouding of knowledge. Desire and its preferences and violences are the first strong root of sin and error. There can be, while you cherish desire, no assured stainless tranquillity, no settled light, no calm, pure knowledge. There can be no right being, for desire is a perversion of the spirit and no firm foundation for right thought, action, and feeling. Desire, if permitted to remain under whatever color, is a perpetual menace even to the wisest and can at any moment subtly or violently cast down the mind from even its firmest and most surely acquired foundation. Desire is the chief enemy of spiritual perfection. So, this is where I remember that we stopped last. Let us today take up something new and we can then take more reflections and questions also. So, if anyone would like to read further, please go ahead and read, please.
I will. In this essay, we shall try to understand how desire is to be conquered and replaced by the divine will by progressive stages of purification, and what differences there is between repression and rejection, suppression and indulgence, desire and necessity, and desire and delight. It goes without saying that those who have known life to be only an inextricable skein of desires and demands, hopes and disappointments, struggles and successes and failures, unsteady pleasures and pains, all marked by a dull or raging fever in their active, conscious being, will find it extremely difficult to believe that there can be a stage of untroubled peace and unebbing delight securely maintained in the midst of life's distracting maelstrom, just as those who have lived in perpetual slavery from their birth cannot easily bring themselves to believe in the dignity and blessings of freedom. Habit dulls or deadens our finer sensibilities and fetters our imagination. A life of unalloyed bliss and desireless action may appear to many as something colorless and vapid, if at all possible. It is only those who have seen through the colossal cheat of the life of desires its continual goad, its frequent frustration or fleeting satisfaction, the train of evils it brings, and the fruitless round in which it moves without any definite issue that can make up their minds to end this agonized slavery and rise into the freedom and peace of their desireless, egoless, boundless spiritual existence. Ma'am, in the second paragraph, I'll just read the first few lines one more time, please. It goes without saying that those who have known life to be only an inextricable skein of desires and demands, hopes and disappointments, struggles and successes and failures, unsteady pleasures and pains, all marked by a dull or raging fever in their active conscious being, will find it extremely difficult to believe that there can be a state of untroubled peace and unebbing delight securely maintained in the midst of life's distracting maelstrom, just as those who have lived in, in perpetual slavery from their birth cannot easily bring themselves to believe in the dignity and blessing of freedom. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So, yeah, any reflections, insights, thoughts are always welcome. So, please unmute at any point of time and share. This part is very, very important, and all of us go through such a stage in our life at one or the other point of time, where once we have had enough of running after desires. So that's what he shares here, see this. It is only those who have seen through the colossal cheat of the life of desires, its continual goad, its frequent frustration or fleeting satisfaction, the train of evil it brings, and the fruitless round in which it moves without any definite issue that can make up their minds to end this agonized slavery and rise into freedom and peace of their desireless, egoless, boundless spiritual existence. So it is very interesting to see, and also, many a times we find ourselves asking that what kind of a life can we live without desires, because I see that every time I am desiring something, and that is how I move, or that's how my life goes on. So it we can't imagine. It's not a factor of imagination that we begin to imagine that, oh, let me imagine how a life without desires would be. And just like that, when we are learning to swim, when we are not yet friends with water, then yes, Deepa, you want to share anything? Okay. So when we are, not having a friendship with water, and maybe we are asking somebody who is a swimmer or a coach, we ask them that, how is it? Can I imagine how is it to be in water? The swimmer would say that you have to first jump into water to know how it is to be in water, and be friends with water. So living a desireless life is not only possible, but it is actually one of the requirements in human life, that we come sooner or later to such a stage that we begin to live a desireless life. Now we find ourselves asking that how is it possible. The thing is that if I am not yet convinced of a life without desires, then it is not my possibility right now. So that's what he is sharing, that if one has recognized in one's life the cheat of desires, that how it eludes us and how it shows us like a mirage, and you go closer and there is nothing there, as one of the cartoon strips, it says anticipation exceeded the actual event. So desire is something like that. You have a temporary satisfaction, and then again you are running, and again more thirsty, more hungry, and nothing really settles in the being after fulfilling the desire. Only for a temporary fleeting time we have the feeling of fulfillment, and again then even a deeper void comes, like in addiction. So those of us who are ready for that, Those of us who have ran after their desires enough, that is what he shares. They are the ones who are now ready to give it a try. That not only a try, actually, you have no other possibility because desire brings a lot of pain also. So now you are ready for a different kind of life. And today I thought, when we were Jagan was reading it, I thought we can also go through something from Letters on Yoga, because here he shares a few stages of emptiness and blankness, and a kind of neutrality which we are not used to, and which comes, and it appears a bit of dull. They, in Hindi, they also call it udasinta, that you are sitting now above of these ups and downs of, you don't want anything from them. Earlier you wanted something, they held a promise for you, so you ran after them, but now you are not wanting anything of them. So let's first go through this, and then we will take some maybe lines from Letters on Yoga part 3. So anything here, anyone, the part that we just read? And I also feel that as we step away from our desires, that you see a desire arising and now you are choosing to step back, I feel that that is what we call tapasya, or an ingathering of the scattering threads of consciousness, because now you're not letting them just scatter around. Now things have lost their promise for you. But it doesn't mean that you have lost the vigor for life. That's the beauty about it. That it's not a dullness in the sense of a laziness, tamas, or inertia, but it's an ingathering and concentration of energies, and then you put it at proper place rather than running after desires. Because you have done that enough. You have, being really loitered around and swayed around and puppeted around enough, and now you are convinced. So this conviction, each one of us has to reach a point in our life that we are convinced, so that we can now start this living in that ingathered state, and selflessly also, whatever contribution we can give to the world in whatever way that can happen, rather than running about to fulfill our little self. Yeah, so anything here, anyone, before we maybe take up a few readings from Letters on Yoga? So I'm just then taking the liberty to take us now into Letters on Yoga, where he shares about these stages that come, while we are on the path, knowingly or unknowingly. So there is this emptiness, and we had talked about that earlier also. Yeah, this voidness, blankness, emptiness, this one. So let us read this, and maybe then some light will enter into our minds, and maybe we can see more. Would anyone want to read? Yeah, I'm sorry, there was something wrong at my yeah, so yes, so would anyone want to read this? Emptiness, a transitional state?
I can read.
Yes, please.
Do you hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Emptiness, a transitional. It is the emptiness inward and outward that often in yoga becomes the first step towards a new consciousness. Man's nature is like a cup of dirty water. The water has to be thrown out, the cup left clean and empty for the divine liquor to be poured into it. The difficulty is that the human physical consciousness feels it difficult to bear this emptiness. It is accustomed to be occupied by all sorts of little mental and vital movements which keep it interested and amused, or even, if in trouble and sorrow, still active. The cessation of these things is hard to bear for it. It begins to feel dull and restless and eager for the old interests and movements. But by this restlessness, it disturbs the quietude and brings back the things that had been thrown out. It is this that is creating the difficulty and the obstruction for the moment. If you can accept emptiness as a passage to the true consciousness and true movements, then it will be easier to get rid of the upset. Do I follow?
Yeah, I think you can continue. Yes.
Okay. Sorry that my connection is unstable. All in the ashram are not suffering from the sense of dullness and want of desire, but many are, because the force that is descending is discouraging the old movements of the physical and vital mind, which they call life, and they are not accustomed to accept the renunciation of the things or to admit the peace or joy of silence.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. So it's like, how when we are doing farming, when we are maybe rearing up some crops, cultivating some crops, and the older one has to be now cleared up, and the new crop we have to put, so that the farm is full of that. We have often seen that at times the older one needs to be kind of burned out, or it has to be cleared away totally, and the field remains empty for some time before it becomes ready for the new crop to be cultivated. So while we are leaving our older consciousness and now the new consciousness has to come, it is like that a temporary phase comes where it is like a period of a kind of emptiness. Why we can call it emptiness? In relation to the earlier life, which was full of sways of ups and downs and ups and downs and lots of movement. So a person who is born on say a roller coaster, if I am born on a roller coaster, then for me getting off a roller coaster will appear very uneasy. I won't be very comfortable with it, and I would say no, something is missing, something is missing. But that is not the case. It's like, just like I was adapted to a different life, and now it's a different life that I am now getting adapted to. So for us, in our ordinary consciousness, we are actually, we can say, we are born usually in a roller coaster, because lots of turmoils, lots of ups and downs, movements around, also in our parents, people around us, and the same older impressions, sanskaras we carry in ourselves. So now when we evolve in our consciousness, it is as if I am getting off that roller coaster. I'm stepping back from that roller coaster. So for a moment it appears a little uncomfortable. When I'm on the ground and I see the roller coaster in front, I just want to get onto it because I'm used to it. So it's more of a habit that we are not able to be with that calmness or quietness, or no judgments in the mind, or ignoring all the thoughts and feelings which go rapidly round and round and round without any conclusion, or not buying into those conclusions. So this kind of a life for a moment can appear dull. And it can appear also a bit of uneasiness, that something is not okay, as if in my life. But that's what he shares, that man's nature is like dirty cup of water. It has to be emptied again and again of that dirtiness. So we have to purify ourselves of the older movements, older crops, so that the new crops in the farm can be grown. And that requires that we go through these phases in life where from time to time we have to become friends and we have to allow the blankness to be, we have to allow the emptiness to be. Yeah, and that's what he's sharing here, that the difficulty is that the human physical consciousness, we have to see that the physical body can't bear that silence. It just wants to talk out. Some gossip, some random comment, some judgment it will pass. Why? Because of older habit. And after passing that judgment, passing that conclusion, we may actually feel bad about it, that why, what was the need to say it? But because of older habitual movement, I say it. So the difficulty is that the human physical consciousness feels it difficult to bear this emptiness. It is accustomed to be occupied by all sorts of little mental and vital movements which keep it interested and amused, or even if in trouble and sorrow, still active. So something, ruminating about something, may be giving me actually sorrow, but I can't stop doing it because that's how I am used to it. I can't stop it. It's giving me pain to think about it, but I continue to think about it. Why? Because I have no other as if option. The mind is untamed, and I'm used to think about things all the time. So it's a very sad habit that we have cultivated over the past, and that is what slowly we have to drop, because it's not doing any benefit to us anymore. Yeah, so anything here, anyone?
Yeah, Monica, last week, 3 days back, we discussed the same thing, no?
Yes.
On Sabtri session. We are not able to sit idle. We want to just talk. We want to talk over phone or see the YouTube or WhatsApp or something we want to do. And it is very difficult, the habit, as you said, it is in ourselves since, I think, very, very long time. So it is not going very easily. Today I tested, I just made an experiment with myself. I was, my mind was worried about some thing in the family, but one of my mind says, don't think about that. If you think about that, the problem will grow. So the other part of me says, so what if? So the what if, then I took the Nama Japa for that. Whenever I think about the problem, I started doing the Nama Japa, ma. But it really helped me. I know that it is helping me, it will help me, but still my older mind wants to go back to the problem and think about the same problem and torment myself. So, it was nice picture to see myself like that.
Beautiful, yes. And when it is wanting to slip into the older thinking patterns, I think it's beautiful that when we look at it, that, oh, it's wanting to go there again, then we actually just look at it like, how like a puppy, small puppy, it just out of habit, it just moves around here and there restlessly, and there is nothing like, I don't have to get engaged there. I know that the mind is going there out of habit. But I don't have anything to do with that, so I call it back. And people, in Buddhism, masters have said that how you train the mind to be concentrated or ingathered is that when it goes out, you see it like a little puppy who just wants to explore and goes here and there and here and there, restless out of habit. And you call it back and bring it back into your lap. Then it goes out again, then you bring it back to your lap again. Then it goes out again, then you bring it back to your lap again. You know that it's a puppy, it doesn't know, it kind of, out of childish habit, it goes out, and you bring the puppy back, bring the puppy back, bring the puppy back, bring the puppy back. The moment you observe it going down the slippery slope. But you now don't have to do anything with those engagements. It's like abandoning the older skin totally. But it I think the bringing back can only be done when I observe that it is slipping back again. That's what you were sharing. Because if the observation is not there, how will I bring it back?
But the beauty is that the mind knows if we think about the same problem, it is not going to help. It is not going to solve the problem. It is going to, the worry will be more, and I will torment myself. Everything this mind nicely knows.
Absolutely.
But still, it nicely goes in and put.
Yeah, but there is a difference. Do you see the difference?
And in dirty water, and again get.
Yes.
I observed today.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and see, when I started doing this Nama Japa, see, within 10 counts, again the mind goes there. Now again I'll start. So we had a nice tough competition today, me and my mind. So we said, see, if you go out with 10 counts, then again you have to count from 1. So like that, how many times I started from 1, I didn't know. But still it was interesting to see how the mind jumps and jumps and jumps and goes out. Anyway, it was a nice, beautiful experiment. But, I don't know how far this experiment will continue. We have to come back to, the solutions.
Yes.
I don't know. Since 2-3 days, the same paragraph is coming, no? Yesterday also, we read something relative about this, and day before and today also. Yeah. And it is very good that you gave that puppy example, so that, we'll not feel bad.
Yes.
Thank you, Monique.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Anything else here? Anyone? So again, as Aurobindo says, that if we are restless again and again, and it's like as if we are bringing back the dirty water that we have thrown. So we are making our cup dirty again. So that's what he shares. But by this restlessness, it disturbs the quietude and brings back the things that had been thrown out. So this is what we continue to do again and again for a very long time, unless we are truly, truly convinced that this is not the right way. If you can accept emptiness as a passage to the true consciousness, it's just like, a passage. It's like a thing in a meantime that we have to go through. He says that if you can accept emptiness as a passage to the true consciousness and true movements, then it will be easier to get rid of the obstacle. So we have to take these periods of quiet or blankness or emptiness or whatever we can call them as an intermediary, one can say, zone, that we have to pass through. Like we are going into a cave and we have to, find the treasure. So before we reach to the treasure, there is a tunnel, which is dark and there is nothing there. So one has to just go through, one has to have the perseverance to go through that tunnel until we have the treasure in front of us. Yeah. This also is very beautiful, where he says, Rishabhchand ji, a life of unalloyed bliss and desireless action may appear to many as something colorless and vapid, if at all possible. So we may think that, what kind of a life it would be, so blank and monotone, that always there is bliss and bliss, there is nothing else because there are no ups and downs. but that is only our limited imagination. Just because I have a bad taste, I don't know how to appreciate good food. The good food in front of me, in the beginning at least, it appears to me not that good and maybe dull at times, very monotone. But it's only because I have a bad taste. I'm habituated to something which is not really healthy for me, but I only have pleasure there, so I am not ready to yet leave it. And that is why our conviction with the older life not being beneficial is very, very important. Without that, no one can force you into a new kind of life. No one. So if we are not convinced, we better live whatever life that we are convinced for. Yes, so anything more over here as or unless maybe we can then else we take further a few, maybe this much, yeah, a new paragraph we can take, if not anything. Yes. Okay, so it seems everyone is good. Then we go ahead and if someone is having the capacity, they can read this full paragraph, the one in front.
Okay, I'll read. In the second chapter of the Gita, there is a very graphically graduated description of how desire attacks a man and leads him to perdition. As soon as he thinks intently of an object, he becomes attached to it. Of attachment is born desire. Desire gives rise to wrath and passion. Wrath generates infatuation. Infatuation leads to a loss of the memory of one's eternal self. Loss of the memory of the real self culminates in a ruin of intelligence. And when intelligence is obscured and ruined, he is done for. The whole steep process by which a man who has subjected himself to desire comes to grief is beautifully delineated. First, an intent settling of the consciousness on an object of the sense, then attachment, then desire, then disquieting wrath, then infatuation, then forgetfulness of one's true self, then a complete eclipse of intelligence, and then when the light of the intelligence is clouded, a collapse of the whole being. This is the invariable story of every man madly pursuing the phantoms of desire. They prove to be his doom. If the very first movement could be checked, if desire could be killed in the seed, if the mind, as soon as it settled on an object of sense with a longing for possession, could be quietly removed and concentrated on the infinite and the eternal, it is indeed the infinite alone that can give us the infinite satisfaction, which a hungering soul vainly seeks in finite objects. The whole precipitate process of fall could be avoided. But the desire soul acts with an almost irresistible impetuosity. It sweeps us as a storm sweeps a frail boat, and before we have time to control its course, we find ourselves rolling in the dust.
Thank you. So this is the thing, and if anyone has not tasted it yet, I think I would maybe, we actually better taste it. Because before that we don't know what these words are about, so it's very good to taste it. If we have not really have this fall, not tasted this fall that comes with desire and collapse of the whole being that comes with desire, then you can't appreciate these words also. So I feel very grateful, that I think I can say that I resonate with these words because I have tasted it, and I know really, these words bring something alive, that yes, 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 it is true, yes, it is true, something like that. So, although he has delineated it step by step, like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, but when it is happening, then it's not step by step because it is very steep. It's like, it's like in one go, and you're not able to make these steps clearly for ourselves. But if we have tasted this whole process enough number of times, then when it begins to happen again, then we can actually see it in steps and then take a U-turn on whichever step that we can see, oh, I am here now, So this is the beauty that I see here, that he says towards the end that, but the desire soul acts with an almost irresistible impetuosity. It sweeps us as a storm sweeps a frail boat. And before we have time to control its course, we find ourselves rolling in the dust. So in the beginning, we are not able to see how these steps are happening, like step 1, step 2, step 3. We don't have that clarity. And why we don't have that clarity? Because I am totally identified with that desire soul. I am not a witness. And the beauty of life's experiences, and that is what comes in Savitri, the pact between Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is the witnessing one, and the Prakriti, the movements and happenings of life, thoughts, feelings, all the happenings, outside movements, is that the Purusha wantingly surrendered and said that, okay, let me take the back seat. I will not make myself loud, and through you, I will grow. And this is the benefit of our life experiences, that through our life experiences, we become convinced that this now I know is not the right way to go. Why? Because I have tasted it enough. So the Purusha comes to stature, he gains strength in the gymnasium of Prakriti. This is very beautiful. So again, we can go back to these steps actually, but first we have to see that why initially we are not able to see the steps, because we are clouded and identified totally with the desire soul, and it tha karke, it's like just as if it's one step, the whole fall. We are not able to see it step by step. So as soon as now this is a description of how desire attacks a man. He's taking it from Gita, second chapter of the Gita, and he's delineating it further for us. As soon as he thinks intently of an object. So what happens? Whenever we see something in our life which appears very attractive, what do? All of us know this. We think and rethink about it. The mind goes back to that experience again and again. It is not there in the present moment at all. It is just in the past, ruminating, regurgitating, and wanting to repeat that attraction or delight or joy that came to it. So this is the first step, and I'm sure all of us at least have tasted this first step at least. So as soon as he thinks intently of an object, he becomes attached to it. Now what happens? That I am thinking and ruminating, regurgitating about something intently. Now my focus is not the divine, but that particular thing or the situation or an experience or some name, fame, respect, some opportunity, and I regurgitate about it. Now the more I regurgitate about it, the more it makes me sticky, and I now want more and more of it, because it feels like there is a promise it will give me back some joy or delight. So as soon as he thinks intently of an object, he becomes attached to it. Of attachment is born desire. Desire gives rise to wrath and passion. So you become either passionate about something, or we become revengeful of something which is against our passion. So, and it gives us agitation, that I want to get it, like that. It gives us agitation. You may not be saying it out loud, but inwardly you are very agitated about it. Wrath generates infatuation. So this agitation that I am having in the being owing to rumination in the thought, regurgitation in the thought, that leads me to get infatuated either with a person or a situation or anything, the opportunity that is outside out there. Infatuation leads to a loss of the memory of one's eternal self. We forget that we have contentment in us all the time. This we forget. So the more I am outwardly looking through the doors of my outward senses, and the more I am believing in it, it gives me a sense that there I will get satisfaction, and it is not here. So it lets me to forget that true contentment is not in me, but outside somewhere. So that's what he's sharing, that it leads me to forgetfulness of my eternal self. Loss of the memory of real self culminates in a ruin of intelligence. It just clouds my intelligence. I can't see truly anymore. There is no clarity in my being. And when intelligence is obscured and ruined, he is done for. So there is some saying by somebody, some master, or some in actually it comes in one of the Hindi poems. जब नाश मनुष्य पे छाता है, पहले विवेक मर जाता है. So our buddhi, our intelligence, it actually becomes clouded when this doom is over us, that we are infatuated by something outside of us. The whole steep process by which a man who has subjected himself to desire comes to grief is beautifully delineated. And ultimately, of course, it leads to grief because it is not a possibility that we can ever possess something which is outside of us, which appears outside of us. We can't ever do that if that's not the design. First, an intense settling of the consciousness on the object of the sense. You saw something, you tasted something, you felt something, you heard something, and now you want to do it more and more and more. Then attachment, then desire, then disquieting wrath, means a kind of a restlessness and agitation in order to possess it. Then infatuation, you become obsessed with it. And then forgetfulness of one's true self, then a complete eclipse of intelligence, and then when the light of intelligence is clouded, a collapse of the whole being. This is the invariable story of every man madly pursuing the phantoms of desire. If the very first movement could be checked, if desire could be killed in the seed, if the mind, as soon as it settled on an object of sense with a longing for possession, could be quietly removed and concentrated on the infinite and eternal, it is indeed the infinite alone that can give us infinite satisfaction. So we have to see here, why do we talk of mindfulness? This is why we talk of mindfulness. कि जैसे ही माइंड भागने लगे किसी के पीछे, उसको बुला लो वापस, माँ के नाम पे बुला लो या ब्रेथ पे बुला लो. And mindfulness, we cannot talk to everyone. We can only talk, actually, we can of course talk to everyone about mindfulness, but I feel that the most we get benefited with mindfulness is once we have ran really, really enough, and we have had tasted all this disquiet and agitation and the doom, and we don't want it again. Then we are self-motivated to be mindful. That, as Shadaji was sharing in the beginning, that the moment I see my mind going somewhere outside to a thing of sense, some sensory input came and I want to now go there, immediately we observe it and we settle it down on the infinite, on the divine or the breath, and bring it back home in the body. And this self-motivation comes only with our own experience. Now I can talk about mindfulness, and now I will be motivated to practice mindfulness or japa or chant or anything. Yes, so if there are any thoughts, reflections, we can take.
Yes, yes, it's very interesting. I've heard about mindfulness so many times, and I thought it's me living in my present, not going in the past or in the future. But what you just said is very enlightening, and also I have a few questions. So, there is this habit that if someone is telling me something, I would say, तूने किया क्या? तूने किया नहीं तो मुझे क्यों बता रहा है? And I follow my uncle. His name is Virakar. He does mother sessions and all. One day I spoke with him on the phone and I said, Uncle, when someone is advising me something, I'm asking them or I'm thinking in my mind, did they do it? And he told me that when a doctor gives you a medicine, will you ask the doctor, have you taken the medicine? Because the sickness is yours. You have the illness. So it's very interesting to me that you said mindfulness. So, ma'am, a quick question: that if one is practicing mindfulness and the mind is going towards this person and saying कि इसने नहीं करा तू क्यों करेगा, then will it help this individual who is practicing to come back into him and to say that now you focus on yourself. It doesn't matter what others do. You want to do it, you do it. Does it really do that, ma'am?
I think you have to go by your own experience.
Yeah.
Anna, so how are you benefited? So here we have to be actually extremely selfish about our benefit. That if the other person has not practiced it, but you feel that there is something in what he is sharing, and when you practice it, you get benefited. The other person may not be actually practicing it, but because it gives you benefit, you take it. So, and if it doesn't give me benefit, of course, I can abandon it anytime. So I think where it goes that, okay, tune kiya kya, what you were sharing, there I don't need to go much. I need to be totally, one can say, selfish here regarding my own benefit, that if it helps me calm down, if it helps me in any which way, then even if the other person has not experimented with it, I would like to experiment with it, because this is how divine gives us signals, through other people, through books, randomly we come across something, somebody says something and we resonate with it. So these are all signals that the divine, kind of uses to unfold our life and show us the path.
Yeah. Yes. Because I can see the smartness here that I am applying. Someone's giving an advice, I resonate, I try to follow, and quickly this thing grabs me and says, stop, because it does not want me to. The smartness of how it's asking me, okay, is he doing? If he's not, then why are we even listening to him? And that's where the progress is never made.
Bilkul.
So,
and
yes.
this you have to see that this smartness or cleverness in us, which stops towards any, or maybe let us not progress towards progress, that is what we can say is the egoistic sense mind. It is not you. So when the next time you are looking at this smartness happen in the mind, you look at it as something other than you. Don't say that I am clever and I am smart, because it is actually not you. It is your false self that we are identified with. Because when I step back from it and I say that no, this is not me, this is an intruder living in me, then you actually empower yourself. But the moment I take it on me that, oh, this is me, I am so smart and I am so clever, this disempowers me. You will feel that empowerment, the moment you step back and abandon it fully, that, I have listened to this cleverness of you so many times. Now, you just quietly sit down in the corner and I'm not going to listen to you. So now you are taking it as an intruder. And you are the one who is the observer or the knowing of things happening in the being. That will empower you. So try not to identify with this intruders kind of happenings in the being, and to identify more and more with the witnessing aspect, that which observes and discerns and makes the right choice.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, anything else, anyone? So again, when we sense a certain unease in ourselves, I am the one knowing the unease. Somebody said something and you become a bit humiliated or insulted, or you don't feel easy. I am the one, again, this is what mindfulness is about. I am the one knowing the happening within me. And the moment we are able to detach ourselves in that way, you will see that it really, really is very empowering stance. Rather than being overwhelmed by that happening, we actually gain our strength and empower ourselves rather than disempower. We are the one who knows the happenings of the being, who knows that the unease is there, who knows that the disquiet is there. I am not the disquiet. The disquiet, I know the disquiet. I'm the knowing of it. So this is how mindfulness really helps, because it helps us to gain strength rather than drain our energy into these, the surface happenings of life. And who would not want to be empowered? All of us want to be empowered, in our life. And this is the promise that we do to ourselves, that no, as we were talking about that other prayer from the mother, that I don't want to torment myself. So I would not identify myself with any surface happening, and I am the watching, I am the knowing of that happening. And from that knowing stance, we can take any further decision that needs to be taken. And it has to be done moment by moment by moment, because any moment you slip and then you are not mindful, you are in the sway of that thought and feeling. And that's why Kabir ji would say that as long as I have breath in the body, I need to be mindful. Because if I'm not mindful, I'm not mindful. It's not like once you have stabilized mindfulness, always you are mindful. It's not the case. We always have to stabilize in mindfulness. So a continuous practice. And why would I practice? As we were saying, that we would be self-motivated, because I want to do that. It gives me benefit. I benefit myself. I have more peace, more quiet, more strength, more vigor for life. I can contribute more towards world and its beings and myself. That's why I would do it. So we become more functional when we are taken care of in like in that way. That's why I would do that. So we become self-motivated. Nobody else is forcing me to do that. I am doing it because it gives me benefit. Yeah, anything more? Any last comments over here? So then maybe take a moment of silence to pray for ourselves and others, that may we all be, through our life experiences, able to see now these stages of how desire pulls us down, step by step stages of it. And may we all be able to catch it in the very first instance, when the mind becomes, kind of wants to settle on an outward attraction. May I be aware when I'm doing that, and may I be able to bring the mind on the infinite and not get swept by the outer glitter and attractions and opportunities that may appear very, very glittery. And may we never, never, ever lose our sense of true self, because desire and running after these attractions make us forget our true self, that contentment lies within me all the time, 24/7. True contentment is with us all the time. May we all have a remembrance of true contentment, that it lies within us 24/7. And whenever I want, I can make a U-turn and be back in the inner sanctuary. May all of us have the strength to walk on this path. And may all of us find lots of peace in our heart, tranquility in our heart, and joy and progress in our life. May everyone be well and happy and progressive. Yeah, thank you, everyone.